Shocking. I thought we were starting a family, but my wife's betrayal was revealed in a courtroom. I walked through the front door, arms full of groceries, and let out a long breath. The prices had been getting out of control lately, but today's haul had really hit me. $18 for a dozen eggs, $12 for a loaf of bread. I shook my head, setting the bags down on the counter. At this rate, I half expected to see gold flakes in my cereal. Lori wasn't home yet. Again, I glanced at the clock. She was supposed to be off work 2 hours ago. Lately, that had become a pattern. She had a built-in excuse, though. Marcus, her boss, was in the middle of a nasty divorce, and she'd been spending extra hours at the firm, helping with the legal proceedings. Today, she'd even told me she'd be testifying in court as a witness. I wasn't sure what that meant exactly, but I assumed it was some routine work-related thing. At least, that's what I had assumed until I found the envelope. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, crisp white with the unmistakable logo of a law firm stamped in the corner. I probably wouldn't have thought much of it, except it wasn't addressed to Marcus. It was addressed to Lori. Frowning, I picked it up. The paper inside was thick, expensive. As soon as I read the word subpoena, my stomach twisted. This wasn't just some standard work-related document. It was a court order. And then I saw it. Marcus's name. A case concerning infidelity. And right there, among the listed evidence, Lori's name. The room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. I read the words over and over, hoping they would change. But they didn't. Lori was directly involved in Marcus's divorce case, and not as some neutral witness. The way it was phrased, the implication was clear. She was potentially part of the reason for it. I swallowed hard and set the paper down, my fingers numb. My brain tried to reason with me to explain it away. Maybe this was just legal jargon. Maybe her name was there for some completely innocent reason. But deep down, I felt the first crack in something I hadn't even known was fragile. I barely had time to process it before the front door opened. Lori walked in, tossing her bag onto the couch. She looked exhausted, but when her eyes landed on the open envelope on the counter, she froze. Her reaction was immediate. Too immediate. "Why are you opening my mail?" Her voice was sharp, defensive. Not "oh, hey babe," not "what's that," not even "what are you reading," just straight to the offense. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Lori, what is this?" I held up the subpoena, watching her closely. Her eyes darted to it, then back to me. She crossed her arms. "It's nothing, just a legal thing." "A legal thing?" I repeated, my voice quieter now. "Your name is in it, under evidence." She let out a short laugh, forced, unnatural. "It's not what you think." I hadn't even said what I was thinking. "I didn't say what I think, Lori," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "So why don't you tell me?" She shook her head, grabbing the envelope out of my hand. "You had no right to open this. That was it."
No explanación. No clarificación.
Just outrage that I had seen it. Something inside me twisted. An ugly feeling I didn't want to name yet. The first bell had rung. I just didn't know what it was warning me about. I barely slept that night. Lori had gone to bed without another word, rolling away from me the second she got under the covers. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning in endless circles. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that subpoena. Her name, evidence. I turned onto my side, listening to her breathe, wondering if she was really asleep or just pretending. She hadn't even tried to explain. Not really. Just why did you open my mail? Like that was the biggest issue here. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I could feel it now, that gnawing, burning sensation deep in my gut. Doubt. I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid, jealous husband who read too much into things. But the way she reacted, the way her face had gone pale when she saw the envelope, couldn't let it go. By morning, I'd made up my mind. If she wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. That afternoon, I met up with Jason at a coffee shop downtown. Jason and I had been friends since college. He was the kind of guy who could take apart a laptop and put it back together blindfolded. He worked in IT security now, the guy companies called when their systems got hacked. I trusted him, and more importantly, I knew he could help. He took one look at me and frowned.
All recht, Mann.
What's going on? I hesitated. Saying it out loud made it feel more real. But I had to. I think Lori's cheating on me. Jason leaned back, exhaling through his nose. Damn. I ran a hand through my hair, restless. I don't know for sure, but something's off. She's been weird lately, and then I found the subpoena. I told him everything. The court order, her name listed as evidence, her reaction, how she refused to explain. Jason listened, his expression unreadable. When I was done, he nodded slowly. You want me to find out for you? I exhaled. Yeah. He tapped his fingers on the table. All right, I can check her cloud backups. Most people don't realize their phone automatically saves things. If she's deleted anything, there's a chance I can recover it. I nodded, feeling both relieved and sick at the same time. Jason sighed. Are you sure you want to go down this road? You might not like what you find. I have to know. Jason didn't argue. Instead, he pulled out his laptop, cracked his knuckles, and got to work. Took less than an hour. Jason barely spoke while he worked, eyes flicking across his screen as he pulled data from Lori's backups. Every few minutes, he muttered something under his breath, clicking through folders, scanning for anything out of place. Then he stopped. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. His jaw tightened. What? I asked. He turned the laptop toward me. My stomach dropped. Emails. From Marcus. I scanned the subject lines, my pulse hammering in my ears. I can't stop thinking about last night. Let's meet tomorrow at the usual place. I still feel your taste. My hands clenched into fists. The dates of the emails lined up perfectly with the nights Lori had come home late. The nights she told me she was working late for Marcus's divorce case. I gritted my teeth, staring at the screen. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't some innocent conversation taken out of context. This was betrayal. I sat back, breathing hard. Jason watched me carefully. What do you want to do? I didn't answer right away. My mind was already racing ahead, piecing together my next move. I had proof now. Lori had been lying to me, and she had no idea that I knew. I needed to see it for myself. There was no more guessing, no more hoping that this was some massive misunderstanding. I had read the emails. I had seen the dates. I knew the truth. But part of me, some stubborn, desperate part, still needed confirmation. So, the next morning, I found myself walking through the doors of the county courthouse, my heart pounding harder than I cared to admit. I told myself I was just an observer, that I wouldn't confront her here, but I needed to see it with my own eyes. I took a seat in the back, unnoticed among the crowd. Marcus sat next to his lawyers, looking as smug as ever. He was the type of guy who walked around like the world owed him something. Expensive suit, perfectly trimmed beard, that easy confidence of a man who never doubted himself. And then there was Lori. She sat on the witness stand, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. From a distance, she almost looked composed. But I saw the way her fingers twisted together, the way her eyes flickered toward Marcus before settling on the lawyer in front of her. She was nervous. The questioning started off simple. Her job, her role in Marcus's company, how long she had worked for him. She answered each question carefully, her voice steady. Then came the real one. Mrs. Carter, did you and Mr. Brooks ever meet outside of work? I watched Lori tense, just for a second, before she forced a polite smile. Yes, we had business dinners occasionally to discuss work matters. Her voice was too smooth, rehearsed. The lawyer nodded, flipping through his papers like he was only mildly interested. Business dinners, he repeated. Strictly professional, of course? Of course, Lori said quickly. He exhaled, like he had been expecting that answer. Then, Mrs. Carter, could you please explain these? He turned, motioning toward the bailiff, who walked forward and placed a folder on the judge's bench. A moment later, a screen lit up beside the witness stand. The first image appeared. Lori, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant. her hand resting over Marcus's. She stiffened, but didn't say anything. A second photo, them standing in front of a hotel. Marcus's arm wrapped tightly around her waist, his lips dangerously close to her ear. The courtroom was silent. Lori's face drained of color. My stomach twisted watching her panic, watching her scramble for an explanation. These are taken out of context, she stammered. Marcus was. He was going through a hard time, and I was just trying to be supportive. You hold hands with all your bosses during business dinners? The lawyer asked flatly. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her lawyer quickly stood. Objection, Your Honor. These photos are circumstantial. The judge raised a hand. Overruled. The damage was already done. I could see it in the way the opposing lawyers exchanged glances, the way people in the room whispered to each other. Everyone understood exactly what was happening. Lori's lawyer rushed to shift the conversation, trying to steer the case in a different direction, but I wasn't listening anymore. I had heard enough. I stood quietly and walked out of the courtroom, my hands clenched into fists. I didn't need to stay for the rest. I already knew how this ended. I sat in my car outside the courthouse, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My pulse was still racing from what I had just seen. Those photos, Lori's pathetic attempts to explain them away, the way Marcus sat there, completely unfazed, like he had nothing to lose. I had walked out before the trial ended, but I already knew how this story played out. I didn't need to hear the verdict in Marcus's divorce. I needed to hear the truth from Lori, and for that I needed one last piece of evidence, something she couldn't talk her way out of. I took a breath, pulled out my phone, and dialed the number for the hotel from the photo. A woman answered after 2 rings. Holloway Grand. How can I assist you? I forced my voice to stay calm. Hi. I need to confirm a reservation from a few weeks ago. It was under the name Marcus Brooks. Certainly, the receptionist said. I heard the click of a keyboard as she searched. A few seconds later, she spoke again. Yes, Mr. Brooks had a reservation with us. Would you like to confirm the details? I swallowed hard. Was anyone else listed on the reservation? There was a pause. Then she said, yes. The room was actually booked under a Mrs. Lori Carter. My stomach dropped. My wife had booked the room. Not Marcus. Not some sleazy last-minute arrangement. Not a mistake. She had planned this. I wasn't done. I steadied my breath. And how many keys were issued? 2. 2. My throat felt tight. And the dinner service? She hesitated, then answered, 2 full-course meals were sent to the room that night. That was it. That was everything. I ended the call without another word. Lori had lied to me, lied straight to my face about everything. And now I had the proof she could never talk her way out of. I drove home in silence, my mind blank, my hands steady even though my entire world had just collapsed. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just testified under oath about her business dinners. She looked up, startled. Hey, I cut her off. The Holloway Grand. Her expression didn't change, but I saw it in her eyes. The flicker of panic. I just called. I continued, stepping closer. Marcus booked the room, but you put it under your name. She opened her mouth, but I didn't stop. You were issued 2 keys. You ordered 2 dinners. Her lips parted, her face losing all color. She knew she was caught. I stared at her, my voice calm, cold. Are you still going to tell me this was just a business dinner? For the first time in this entire mess, Lori had no defense. She inhaled sharply, her hands shaking now. Then, in the softest voice, she whispered, I'm sorry. That was all I needed to hear. I stood there in the doorway, the weight of the truth pressing down on me like an avalanche. Lori sat at the kitchen table, her phone face down in front of her, her fingers curled into tight fists. She knew I had caught her. I closed the door behind me. The sound was deafening in the quiet house. How long did it last? My voice was calm, too calm. Lori's eyes darted up to mine, glassy and red-rimmed, her breath hitching. Nate, I'm not asking again, I said, stepping forward. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. The silence between us was already screaming. She swallowed hard, tears welling up. It only happened once. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Once. They always say it was only once. Right? I said, shaking my head. So let me get this straight. One night. One mistake. And somehow, in that one night, you managed to book the hotel yourself, order 2 dinner sets, and get so comfortable with Marcus that you're holding hands at restaurants? That's one hell of a mistake. Lori. She flinched. I didn't plan for it to happen, Nate. I swear. It just happened. I finished for her. My voice was like ice. Spareme, loro. That's not how this works. The first tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped at it with the back of her hand, but more followed. I was lonely, she choked out. You were always so busy, and Marcus, he understood me. He listened. I never meant to hurt you. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. So what? That makes it okay? You felt lonely. So you decided the best way to fix that was to sleep with your boss. Lori let out a sob, her whole body shaking now. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I shot back. Explain it to me, Lori. Make me understand how I'm supposed to believe that you didn't plan this when everything I found says otherwise. She buried her face in her hands. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know. I exhaled sharply and ran a hand through my hair. I had pictured this moment 100 times since I found out. Imagined her admitting it. Imagined her crying. Imagined the excuses she'd make. But standing here now, hearing her sob out pathetic justifications, I was lonely, he listened to me. It didn't feel like I'd imagined. Felt worse. Because none of it mattered. Nothing she said could change what she had done. I'll do anything, she suddenly blurted out, reaching for me. Please, Nate. I'll do whatever you say. I'll quit my job, I'll cut him off completely. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I took a step back. I didn't want her touching me. I stared at the woman I had spent years building a life with, the woman I had trusted more than anyone in the world. I didn't recognize her anymore, and I didn't believe a single word she said. Lori sat frozen, her breath coming in short, shaky gasps between sobs. She kept looking at me like she expected mercy, like she thought if she cried hard enough, begged long enough, I'd tell her it was okay, that we could fix this. But there was no fixing this. Not really. Still, I wasn't gonna let her off the hook so easily. If she wanted a chance, any chance, she was gonna have to prove it. You want to stay? I asked quietly. She nodded frantically, her hands gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Yes. Please, Nate. I'll do anything. All right? I said, voice cold. Then here's what's going to happen. 3 conditions. No arguments, no hesitation. She sniffled, nodding. First, you quit your job. Today. Not next week. Not after you wrap up a few things. You type out a resignation letter right now and send it. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to protest. But then she just swallowed hard and nodded again. Second, I continued. You block Marcus. On your phone, your email, social media, everywhere. And you do it in front of me. She let out a shaky breath. Okay. And third, I said, leaning in slightly, I get access to everything. Your emails, your texts, your social accounts. No secrets, no hidden messages. If you want me to believe this only happened once, then you'll prove it. Lori's face crumbled, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Nate, those are the rules, I said, my voice flat. You don't want to do it? There's the door. She shook her head quickly. No, I'll do it. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. Then start. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. She opened her email first. I watched her type out the resignation letter, her fingers shaking over the keyboard. Effective immediately. Personal reasons. Thank you for the opportunity. She hesitated before hitting send, looking up at me one last time, like she wanted reassurance that this would be enough, that quitting her job would somehow erase everything she had done. I just stared. She pressed send. One down. She picked up her phone next, opening her contacts and finding Marcus's name. Her thumb hovered over the screen for a second before she forced herself to hit block. Then she moved to her social media one by one, cutting him off completely. Finally, she placed the phone down, looking up at me through swollen, tear-streaked eyes. One more, I reminded her. She let out a quiet sob, then reached for her laptop. I watched as she typed in password after password, opening up her email, her messages, everything. She turned the screen toward me, wiping at her face as she whispered, "Here, take it." I stared at the screen, at the open inbox, the messages I could now scroll through at any time. I had one, and yet I felt nothing. Lori sat there, a broken mess, having done exactly what I asked. But it didn't matter, because trust doesn't come with a password. And Lori had already destroyed it. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Lori walked around like a ghost, barely speaking unless I asked her something directly. She did everything I had demanded. Quit her job, blocked Marcus, handed over her accounts. But none of it changed the fact that I no longer trusted the woman sleeping under my roof. She tried to act normal, cooking meals, asking if I needed anything, but I saw the desperation in her eyes. The silent plea for me to tell her that things would be okay, that we'd get past this. But I didn't lie to her, because I didn't know if we ever could. Then, a few days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello," a woman's voice, calm but firm. "Is this Nate Carter?" "Yeah." "Who's this?" A short pause. Then, "My name is Lisa, Marcus Brooks' ex-wife." I sat up straighter. "Lisa." "Yes." She exhaled, as if trying to steady herself. "Look, I know this is unexpected, but I needed to talk to you. I heard what happened. About Lori." I clenched my jaw. "What do you want?" Lisa sighed. "To warn you, because I know exactly what you're going through." I said nothing, gripping the phone tighter. "Marcus is a manipulator," she continued. "He's been doing this for years. He finds women who are vulnerable, who are struggling with something in their marriage, and he preys on them. He makes them feel special, understood, like they're finally being seen. But it's all calculated. It's all a game to him." I swallowed, my throat dry. "I thought my situation was unique," Lisa admitted. "But after I filed for divorce, I started connecting the dots. There were so many other women, Nate. All of them the same story. Married, feeling neglected or overwhelmed. And Marcus, he knew how to pull them in. He made them believe he was their escape." I felt a sharp, bitter laugh rise in my chest. "So what? You're saying Lori was just another name on his list?" Lisa hesitated. "I don't know her, Nate. I don't know what she was feeling, or what led her to this. But I do know Marcus. And I know he's not capable of real love or commitment. He destroys things. He finds women, uses them, then moves on. Just like he's moved on now." I pinched the bridge of my nose, exhaling slowly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know the full story. Because I spent years blaming myself, wondering what I did wrong. When the truth was, I married a man who thrived on breaking people." I let her words settle, staring at the floor. Marcus was a manipulator, predator. But that didn't justify what Lori had done. She made a choice. I never put a gun to her head. I never forced her into a hotel room or made her lie to my face. I had given her love, commitment, trust, and she had chosen to throw it away. Lisa sighed on the other end. "I just wanted to tell you. What you do with it, that's up to you." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Thanks for calling." A pause. Then, "Good luck, Nate." She hung up. I sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand. Marcus might have been the kind of man who looked for cracks in a marriage, but Lori was the one who let him in. The house was quiet when I walked in. Lori was in the living room, curled up on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. She turned her head when she heard the door close, her face filled with something between hope and exhaustion. She had been waiting for me. I took a deep breath, stepping forward. "You did everything I asked." She sat up straighter, eyes searching mine for any sign of forgiveness. "Yes," she whispered. "I did." I nodded, running a hand through my hair. "But that doesn't mean everything is fixed." Her face fell. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Lori," I continued, my voice steady but firm. "I don't know if I ever will." She swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the couch like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Nate, I held up a hand. "Let me finish." She pressed her lips together, nodding quickly. "I talked to Lisa," I said. Lori's eyes widened. "Marcus X. Yeah, she called me." I let the weight of that sink in before continuing. "She told me what kind of man Marcus really is. How he picks women who are struggling, who are vulnerable. How he's done this over and over again. Breaking marriages. Moving on when he gets bored." Lori blinked rapidly, her hands shaking. "Nate, Stop," I said sharply. "I already told you, that doesn't justify anything." Her mouth snapped shut. I exhaled, letting the silence stretch. "I'm not staying because I trust you. I'm not staying because I believe you when you say it was only once." I stared at her, my voice cold. "I'm staying for the baby." She flinched like I had slapped her. "But make no mistake," I continued, my tone unwavering. "This is your last chance. If you lie to me one more time, if I even suspect that you're still thinking about Marcus, still talking to him, still looking in his direction, we're done. No second chances.
No explanations. No begging.
Done." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I understand," she whispered. I looked at the woman I had once loved with everything in me. The woman who had been my partner, my best friend, the mother of my unborn child. And I realized something. I would never see her the same way again. Days turned into weeks, but the wound didn't heal. Lori tried. She really did. She cooked my favorite meals, left little notes on the fridge, tried to start conversations that felt natural. She reached for my hand when we walked past each other, only for me to pull away without thinking. She was desperate to show me that she was still my wife, but she wasn't. I couldn't unsee the messages, couldn't unhear her excuses, couldn't forget the way she had looked at me, not with guilt, but with fear of getting caught. Some nights, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made a mistake by staying. If the baby hadn't been in the picture, would I have left already? I felt empty. We weren't husband and wife anymore. We were roommates, strangers sharing the same space, trapped in a life that had lost all meaning. She still cried sometimes. I'd find her in the bathroom, muffling her sobs into a towel. I didn't comfort her, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I felt nothing. "I'll fight for this," she whispered one night, sitting across from me at the dinner table. "I'll fight for us until the very end." I just nodded. I didn't tell her the truth, that I wasn't sure if there was anything left to save.